Welcome to episode 21 of the St. Charles Podcast. I'm Eric Wood,
Father Mark Brown.
and we are here to talk about communion and some recent happenings in the Anglican world.
Right, in the Anglican world. And it's been a while since we've been here.
It's been about a month.
Yeah, it's about a month. It's what happens when you have Advent, Christmas, lessons and carols, Epiphany, and then your priest just pass out. It comes out.
Well, now
So
it's a
yes,
little more normal.
normal. So we're just going to hit the highlights of the Anglican news and what's going on. Sadly, not sadly, right now we're still going to have the Anglican Communion is coming together in Nigeria in March, and they will be deciding a lot of different things on who is going to be the first among equals. We know the Archbishop of Canterbury, as we say, the throne is vacant, so they got to pick somebody. Probably the only Archbishop out of England that will be there will be the Archbishop of York.
Will he be there, you think?
He's the only one invited. I know Welby was invited, and so he's a prior Archbishop of Canterbury, so he was invited. York is about the only one, because York right now is the only one that goes to Rome. The Archbishop of Wells and the soon-to-be Archbishop of Canterbury, both are heretical women. They won't send them to Rome because Rome won't receive them. And they're going to keep the visual up. They got to keep that visual up that we're okay and Rome's okay, we're okay with each other. So York has been the one that's been going to these meetings with the Pope. So York is probably the only one, and some of the other Orthodox bishops of England. Now York has a conflict. He's got to be at this enthronement, so-called enthronement. So he may not be there, but Welby is going to be there. That's interesting. He's going to be, what I heard on Anglican Inc., he was invited, he's going to be there.
That's wild.
That's wild, it's crazy. Then here in the States, the continuing church is still grateful for the ACNA and their antics, because it keeps our silliness off the radar. But the ACNA has decided, they just had their bishops' meeting down in Melbourne, Florida, last week. And out of that, they're going to make some changes. First of all, they're doing a review of the Rouge trial. Enough people cried shenanigans on how it was handled that they've decided they're going to get a third-party outsider to come and look at it. And they're getting Rachel de Hollander. Now, if that name sounds familiar, she was one of the first people to accuse Larry Nassar of sexual impropriety. She was on the U.S. gym team back in 2016. She now has her law degree, and she helped the Southern Baptist, she worked with the Southern Baptist Convention when they had their sexual problems a few years ago. The problem with her is she seems to work both sides of the fence. While the Southern Baptists hired her to help with this process, and she was on Russell Moore's, and Russell Moore is another interesting Baptist who's fallen out of favor in the Southern Baptist Convention. She was working both sides of the fences, conflict of interest everywhere. She was being paid by the Southern Baptists to investigate, and she was also, according to a Baptist News Global, she was also advising the accusers on what to say, how to say it.
That can be a problem.
That's a big problem. And now there's lawsuits going out there, and it come to find out a lot of the evangelical publications like Guidepost just took what she said for granted, didn't do any journalistic investigation themselves, and probably spread some ideas and some things that were not substantiated. All this, I'm being very, because there's still open lawsuits going on. The bishops of the ACNA decided she would be the best person to do this for. And I just kind of saw the name, it sounded familiar, and I thought, well, this is okay. And then suddenly you started seeing guys like Matt Kennedy going, oh my gosh, could they made a worse choice? Okay, now let's research her. Because when Stan Firm comes out and goes, this is a bad choice. Mark Marshall comes out, this is a bad choice. It's a bad choice, okay? Because both of those groups are very pro-ACNA. So they see this.
They're company line people.
They're company line people.
It's true.
Yeah, it is. Now they'll say some things. Marshall, go to his Substack, Mark Marshall's Substack. You'll see him talking about some of the internal issues and problems in the ACNA. As the latest article out of Egypt, they forgot Egypt.
I read that. That was good. It breaks down the different parts of the ACNA, whereas the diocese that left the Episcopal Church have this memory of being in Egypt, he would say.
Yeah.
And there's other parts of the ACNA that either joined after it was founded in the last 20 years or were part of a body that was not in Egypt, so to speak, like the Reformed Episcopal Church.
And he had people who just came in who have no concept of what Anglicanism is, you know, because the first Archbishop, Bob Duncan, wanted 1,000 new parishes to come hook a crook, and he was going to get them. And that's when you got guys like Todd Hunter and Church for the Sake of Others. And they talk about the CRET, a lot of the internal issues and problems that are happening in the ACNA. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this review, how well it's going to be received, if it's going to be received, if it's even going to be done because of the backlash that's already starting to happen. And then they are moving a little bit forward on Wood. Still don't have a date. I think they are starting to get ready to appoint a prosecutor. Jones has been pushed back, and you know, if the ACNA is smart, they will find a way to settle with him quietly and let him go. I mean, it's like holding on to the tiger by the tail, or you got the snake by the end of the, you know, not snake might be the wrong thing, but if you pick a, I grew up in the country. How you pick up a snake, you pick it up by the head. A lot of people grab it by the tail, and that snake will turn around and bite you. So you never pick anything up by the tail. Well, the ACNA's got the tiger by the tail, and they need to let him go. It's not going to be good for them. And then you got Bishop Julian Dobbs. I don't think he's done anything wrong, but I think the way they handled the investigation of him was totally inappropriate. I was an investigator, and I'm telling you before we started, I had a case one time when I recognized the name, and I went to my boss and I said, I think I went to school with this guy. He didn't say a word. He just took the file away from me because there's a potential conflict of interest. I can't investigate anybody I know or may know or have a potential to know. That clouds the investigation. Whether I do a good one or not, it clouds it. What happened with Bishop Dobbs is that this was the Foley Beach went and got an independent to come in and investigate the accusations of Barnabas Peirce and Bishop Jones about financial improprieties. Well, the investigator he got was friends to the chancellor of Bishop Dobbs. I'm not saying any shenanigans happened, but the appearance. And when the report was finished, neither of the parties, Bishop Jones was not satisfied. Barnabas Peirce was totally not satisfied and actually put a statement in the file for when the IRS, and they said this, for when the IRS comes to investigate this, they will see, and they basically said, we are not satisfied with this investigation wasn't proper, on and on and on. So Barnabas Peirce covered themselves from the IRS. People, why do they do that? Because the IRS it's out there in the internet. IRS is going to get word of it, and you don't want the IRS to get word of it. And when they come in, they're going to have a microscope, and everybody's going to go under, and they're going to find things that you didn't think were wrong. I've been audited once, and it was above board. A lawyer set up a trust for my wife's grandmother because she went into a memory care, and we got everything. IRS said, oh, you just made all this money. No. It's for we were paying for her doctor's bills, her medicines, the memory care place. And we were running through the money like you wouldn't believe, paying for these things. IRS still came in and said, I benefited from it. The lawyer's like, no, there's no benefit. It's separate. These are automatic payments. All these things are happening. Nothing's coming to my wife or I. It's all going out to my grandmother. IRS said I benefited from it and penalized me. So when the IRS comes in, they are going to find a reason to get some more money out of you. So that could happen, and I pray to God it doesn't, but it could happen if they do it to Barnabas Peirce. And it's going to look really bad for the bishop. They should have done it above board. They should have had no hint of impropriety. And ACNA circling the wagons, he's a good bishop, but admit this was not handled correctly. You know, the bishops and the ACNA are getting some really bad advice on things. Either they're not listening to their lawyers, or their lawyers are giving them some really bad advice. One of the two. I'm looking at this going, I don't have a law degree. I'm just an old investigator, retired, and I'm going, Really? You know, common sense. You don't
Here's
hire.
the sad part, Father, is there are people in that equation that are very wise and have good judgment. And I know in the Diocese of South Carolina, those people have either not been listened to or have been pushed out.
That's it. I mean, I am sure when Foley Beach was picking this person, somebody, some canon, some lawyer or something went, hey, excuse me, maybe we shouldn't pick somebody who knows the chancellor, who knows of the bishop to do this. I can't believe all the lawyers and the canons of the ordinary and all that who are around these archbishops and bishops, somebody didn't say something. They were just poo-hooed, ignored, whatever, or the bishop naively thought there's no issue, no problem. Yeah, it's a problem. And I know, once again, Matt Kennedy and all them are rallying around him, and I'm like, it's because y'all have been inside the church your entire life. You don't understand how the world outside the church works.
Maybe it's when you have almost 20 years of emotional investment in this new institution.
That too.
It's hard to see things that people that don't have that 20-year investment might see.
Yeah. Well, I just saw an article where we talked about all these folks, like the ones that invaded the Baptist church Sunday, how they think they're right because they got all this emotional investment into this activism. And it can go on both sides. It can happen in the church. You can see Roman Catholics today who will say the church has never done anything wrong, and you're like, well, the courts have said you have. The history books have said you have. Your own bishops have said you had. No. Okay. So you people can get like that. Maybe I'm too much of a cynic. I don't know. People call me that all the time. I'd rather be right, and if I have to call out, I'd rather be on the side of Jesus. And so if I have to call out my own parish, my own church, my own bishop, I'll call them out. I did it in the Marine Corps. Sometimes it didn't work well for me, and sometimes they're like, oh, listen to Captain Brown. Okay. I'll always preface it, do you want my opinion? That, if you ever hear me say that, if you don't want to hear what I'm about to say no, Father, I don't want your opinion. Then I won't tell you, because usually half the time it's probably going to be something nobody wants to hear. But I keep it to myself until somebody asks. So that's what's going on in the Anglican world. We'll look to see what's happening. Oh, they did call ACNA did call a province-wide meeting in June. Now, the bishops have been getting together this time, but they really don't know what, the laity really doesn't know what that means. That means there's going to be a house of clergy, a house of laity. That hasn't been laid out yet. So they don't know if it's just another bishops gathering or is other people going to be there yet. That hasn't been fleshed out, at least that I have seen reported online. So, well, let's look and see what happens, June will be an interesting time, and we'll see if they keep this Rachel lady or if they find somebody maybe more appropriate to investigate this neutral. If you're going to if the church is going to investigate something, always find somebody who has no connection. That you'll get the most neutral observations there. Because this goes back many, many years, decades. In the Archdiocese of New Orleans, my wife's family is from there, and they would find abuse cases. There's a lot of Roman Catholics down there, a lot of Roman Catholics in the police force. And it was actually reported that the Archbishop would call police officers who were devout Roman Catholics, for the sake of the church, squash this. And they would squash things. My mother-in-law used to get livid about it. So they probably should have signed it to a police officer who was a Baptist. Maybe not that one, maybe a Methodist would be better, or an Episcopalian, because Baptists don't like, their knee-jerk reactions against Roman Catholics. But you got to be able to not be influenced by the people that you're investigating. Mm-hmm. That's what you rely on in your law practice and going to court. It's what the court system relies on, having an unbiased investigator investigate. ACNA's kind of not getting that, and it's guys outside are going, and somebody like me who spent a couple of decades investigating, going, it's not looking good. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong, it's just not looking good. And you're not going to have the confidence of the people. They've already, in the comm boxes, you're seeing it already, What have the bishops ever said it's any good? Why do we need to listen to the bishop? You don't want to hear that in an Anglican church. And that's happening. It's starting to happen. It's anecdotal, I know, but you go to the comm boxes when they release stuff and you see it in there. So the bishops have got some I guess you would say, appearance work to do, so that all things looks above board. So now let's jump over to something happier. Communion. What is communion? Who can take communion where? And why can't, okay? Now the reason we're bringing this up, back before Christmas, we had some questions here at the parish. Where can I receive communion? You know, some people going to the Roman Catholic Church and receiving communion. I didn't know. And when it was brought to my attention, I was like, you can't do that. Is it against our canons? No, it's not, but it's against the canons of the Roman Catholic Church, okay? And when you go to somebody's house, you obey their rules. So in the Roman Catholic Church, only Roman Catholics in a state of grace, we can debate that, can receive communion. Now, a Roman Catholic priest is not going to sit there, just like Father Glore and I will not sit here and do a inquisition at the rail, as we call it. So you walk up, that bishop is, that priest is going to assume you're a Roman Catholic and he's going to give you communion. What happens when he finds out that you're not? Well, you're going to have a very angry priest with you because you caused him to break canon, a law, which means you caused him to sin. So now the sin is on you and on the priest. And the bishop can punish him for it. Whether we like it or not, the priest can be punished by the bishop for doing that. If he knowingly gives communion to a non-Roman Catholic, he can be defrocked. He can lose his vocation. He can be excommunicated. So like I told our people, I said, just because you want to doesn't mean you should. Okay? Look at what you're doing to the priest in the Roman Catholic Church. So when I go to the Roman Catholic Church, whether I'm in my collar or not, or whether I go across the street to St. Mary's to one of their services, I don't even go forward for a blessing. I sit in the pew. And if you sit in the Roman Catholic Church, you see a lot of people sitting in the pew, not going forward. But we are not to be doing that, okay? Now, people say, well, they come here and they receive. Well, we have different rules, okay? Our rules are this. You must be a baptized, believing Christian under no discipline from your home church. We prefer you to believe in the presence of Christ in the Eucharist, because don't take it improperly. Okay, do you have to be confirmed? Well, no, you don't have to be confirmed in the Roman Catholic Church either. They
desirous of communion.
Desirous of confirmation.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, desirous of confirmation. Now, why is that? In both churches. Well, in colonial America, Anglicans and Roman Catholics didn't have bishops over here.
It was a big deal to get some bishops.
It was a big deal to get priests. Yeah. One of our founding fathers, Carrollton, was a Roman Catholic, and he was one of the first bishops in America. So one of our founding fathers, I love it when people say they weren't Christians, but one of our founding fathers actually became a Roman Catholic bishop. They were believers. So we desire that. That's why over in the Roman Catholic Church, you know, they see people receiving communion. You have to be baptized and receive First Communion and desirous of confirmation. In the Anglican Church, you have to be baptized and believe. You receive First Communion and the desirous of confirmation. Pretty much mirror. But if you're, say you're a confirmed Roman Catholic, you can come over here. And during COVID, some did. And I gave them communion. I didn't deny them communion. Okay? I would tell them, well, your church says this. You know, we've had Russian Orthodox and others in here. Some converted to Anglicanism, some did not. And I would say, your church teaches this. This is what we teach. You're conscious, because I'm not sinning if I give you communion. That's man-made rules. Okay, that's not God. You're not going to find that in the Scriptures. You can just find you got to believe, and you got to, you know, what Father Glore and I read the exhortation 3 or 4 times a year. That's what you must believe. A lot of this other separation is men.
A lot of it comes from 1894.
Yeah.
And we have a papal bull that says Anglican orders are null and void.
Mm-hmm.
And since that bull was issued, you've had a lot of, you know, not that we believe that to be true, but
Mm-hmm.
hey, assume that to be true. You recognize these old Catholic orders.
Right.
And we've incorporated those into our succession.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this further complicating element of the old Catholic orders that the Roman Catholic Church does recognize.
Right.
And when you look at their paperwork even at a Roman Catholic parish, it'll say that about.
It'll say who you can receive, where you can go to receive. any Orthodox church, but the Orthodox won't give it to you. If the priest doesn't know you, you're not getting communion. They're very closed. The Assyrian or the Oriental Orthodox Church, and the Polish National Catholic Church. You can receive, if there's not a Roman Catholic, if it's an emergency, not a Roman Catholic, their orders are valid. Now, what happened with the Apostolic Curia is that Leo XIII made a horrible political decision. You can read some books. I have a couple of them. A good one on that would be, oh no, this is on Vatican I. Where is it? Oh gosh, it's John J. Cannot remember his last name, but he wrote on John O'Malley wrote one on the making of the Ultramonte Church, and then Utterly Void is another one written by Roman Catholic priests, and they talk about these things.
These are the old Catholics that when Vatican I comes about, they reject the tenets of Vatican I and set up a separate body that the Roman Catholic Church recognized the validity of their orders, but found them to be
illicit because they're not under Rome. It's John J. Hughes wrote the Absolutely Null and Utterly Void about the papal condemnation of Anglican orders. Got here in my notes in 1896. He wrote that as an overview of the process, and he goes into it. And the issue with it is Leo listened to Cardinal Vaughan of England. Cardinal Vaughan was approached by a high-ranking Anglican layman and a Monsignor from France, because in the 1890s we were very similar. Why can't we just work on some sort of intercommunion thing? The problem is that they didn't go to the Archbishop of Canterbury. They went to the Cardinal of the Catholic Church in England. Cardinal Vaughan saw this as a great way to destroy the Anglican Church, and everybody would clutch their pearls and fall on their knees to Rome and beg them to bring us back. That's actually some things that is in this book. You'll see this. His bishops and priests were going, please don't do this. It'll set it back 100 years.
It's a complicated dynamic in the 1890s for us to visualize today, where you have a lot of Irish immigration to England, where the Catholic Church as an institution is swelling in numbers for the first time in forever.
Forever, since the Reformation.
So the Catholic Church in England is ascendant, if you will, and the British Empire is this global force. And within the British Empire, Anglo-Catholicism and ritualism is also ascendant.
Ascending.
And then we get this.
Right, they thought that. And what everybody talks about and seeing Vatican I, go back to it, that's when the Pope was first said he's infallible. That's what broke the church apart, and you had the old Catholics leaving. And that was a rump Vatican I, because back then you didn't have cell phones. Most of the bishops that were opposed to it had to get back to America. It was mainly the Western bishops, Canada, America.
It had some criticisms.
Had a lot. They didn't want it. They did not want that. Why do we need it? We've never had it. We don't need it now. If you read the history of Vatican I, you'll see the bishops saying, "Why do we need it? We don't need it." And the Pope just outweighted them. They had to go home. He had a rump. They got it passed. What happened in Apostolic Curia is about 20 cardinals was on the advisory board, the magisterium. And they came to the final vote, and it broke down 1/3 invalid orders. 1/3 we need more information. Another third, orders are valid. So Leo goes with the minority position. So the magisterium didn't back, Roman Catholics can get all upset about it, but you read the books by Roman Catholic priests, you'll see that it was a minority position.
But the bull exists.
The bull exists. And even as late as 2017, Cardinal, I always get his last name mispronounced because it's a long, weird, from an American from Alabama, it's a long, weird last name. Coco Palmanario said we need to revisit Anglican orders, but with a caveat because of women's ordination in the Episcopal Church and the English Church. Now, the funny thing about Leo XIII, he ignored 2 prior papal bulls, which stated Anglican orders are valid.
And that was from the time of Mary I.
Yes, and that on the ground, Poole went in, Archbishop of Canterbury, he was appointed by the Vatican. He went in and looked at every Anglican order from the archbishops down to the brand new deacons, and found less than half a dozen were defrocked mainly because they refused to divorce their wives. The main problem those two popes, which was Julius III in 1553 and Paul IV in 1555 had, was that Parliament was telling where the bishops would go. And I had a problem with that too. So those two papal bulls in the 1550s, Anglican orders are valid. And they looked at the Edward Ordinal and everything else, which the next pope, so you have two papal bulls, Anglican orders are good. One papal bull, Anglican orders are bad. Well, the majority of the Anglican papal bulls on our orders were valid. But nobody knows about the other two because Rome doesn't want that information out because it hurts the third one. Now, in the Anglican Church, we had what they call the Dutch touch. You know, you had the old Catholics started back in the early 20th century participating in ordinations of bishops.
Which in a way is a self-conscious reaction from our side to the papal bull of saying, well, if that be the case, and even assuming arguendo, that's correct, we will fix this by injecting the old Catholic
We'll make
line.
you feel better by putting old Catholic. Because even the Russian Orthodox Church in the early 20th century was in the process of looking at recognizing Anglican orders. St. Tikhon, we actually have his canon in our missal that he wrote for the West. And he said, because he was the Bishop of Alaska and the West Coast, you can go to an Anglican church and receive communion. He said, I actually prefer you do that than a Roman Catholic church.
He was friends with Bishop Grafton from Fond du Lac, the diocese far, far north.
There's pictures of them together.
When Bishop Grafton was getting his suffragan bishop consecrated, and I think it was 1902, he had this very elaborate ceremony where he invited Patriarch Bishop Tikhon, however his title is, and he's actually there, and there's a famous photograph that caused all this controversy.
A lot of controversy. I've seen that photograph. I bet you they got it in the Shoda House too.
They do.
Yeah, okay. I saw that, and I thought, well, it was a wonderful thing, but then the knee-jerk reaction. So it started happening, and for continuing Anglicans, just look at continuing Anglicans, it's not every, 99.9% of continuing bishops, priests, and deacons in the Anglican Church have our orders through the Polish National Catholic Church.
Following that reaction on the Anglican side to that papal bull, there was an injection of the old Catholic orders into our line.
And in America, that's the Polish National Catholic Church. Over in Europe, with Father Robinson, is the Nordic Catholic Church. Those two.
They call it the Union of Scranton.
Right, the Union of Scranton, and you have the Union of Utrecht, which has fallen because they now ordain women. So that's not part of the old Catholics anymore. They actually
They're like the liberal old Catholics.
Yeah, they excommunicated them. So, you talk to a Polish National Catholic person, you bring them up, they're like, oh, they're excommunicated. So our orders, we call it the Chambers Succession. If you trace your bishop back to Albert Chambers, who was consecrated a bishop in 1963, you have Polish National Catholic orders because the man who laid hands on him had it. But the Polish National Catholic Church didn't lay hands on Bishop Chambers, but one of the men who had it laid it on him.
It was a big thing in the Episcopal Church at that era to infuse the orders with the old Catholic orders.
Oh yeah, they did it all the way up until the early 70s when the Episcopal Church decided now they're going to ordain women, and the Polish National Catholic Church walked away, and that infusion stopped. So yeah, we changed it back. It goes all the way back. When I came here 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now, then Archbishop Upham, what the continuing church will do is if you weren't hands were laid on you by a continuing bishop, they question your orders, which I think, I'm not for. He questioned mine. Now, I knew he was going to do it. And so I looked into his succession line, and I knew the man that laid hands on him.
Found the commonalities.
Yeah. And so I sat down and said, well, let me tell you who ordained me as a priest, as Bishop Nolan. Oh, well, who consecrated him a bishop? I said, Archbishop Reber, who has Polish National Catholic, Presley Hutchins, who has and then this guy, I can't pronounce his last name, I'm going to probably get it wrong, Weigel,
Which was his bishop.
which was his bishop who consecrated him a bishop. That went away. Boom, I'm done. I know an ACNA priest with valid orders went to the APA and they did a conditional ordination on him, which almost smacks of Donatism, you know. And I'm like, look at it, you know. When somebody comes here and I say I've been confirmed, I'll ask, what was your bishop's name that confirmed you? If I get a male bishop's name, okay, I just need your paperwork. If they say a woman, no, you're not confirmed. And that should be with the priest. Who ordained you a priest? Oh, it was Bishop John. Okay. Who ordained you a priest? Well, her name? No. You need to be ordained. That's easy. If you need to get deeper, you can do that.